My cousin's wedding weekend cost $41,000, and by the time the DJ played the last song, my family expected me to have paid for nearly all of it without ever once asking me directly. They didn't ask because asking means someone can say no. They had learned, over the years, that if you just let the bill land in someone's name at the front desk, most people will pay it rather than cause a scene in a lobby full of wedding guests in cocktail dresses. What they didn't know was that I had worked in hotel event finance for 6 years before switching careers, and I read a folio the way most people read a text message. Fast, and for exactly what it says. They thought I would see $41,000 and quietly hand over a card. What actually happened is the front desk got a very different kind of phone call. Mine. Welcome to the channel. If you have ever been treated like the family's emergency fund instead of a person, stick around, because I think you are going to feel this one in your chest. Drop a comment when you get to the part with the receptionist. You will know it when you get there. Let me take you back to the week the invitation arrived, because you need the full shape of it before the wedding weekend makes any sense. My name is Ren Castellano. I am 34, and for 6 years, I ran event finance for a hotel group out of Scottsdale, the person who reconciles room blocks, catering minimums, vendor deposits, and every line item that shows up on a wedding bill nobody wants to actually look at. 3 years ago, I left that job to start my own consulting practice advising small hospitality groups on the exact same thing. Boring work, to most people. To me, it is a language, and I am fluent. I grew up the oldest of 4 cousins raised more or less as siblings, packed into my Auntie Nessa's house most summers while our parents worked. My cousin Talia is 2 years younger than me, and for most of our childhood, she was the one who got picked first for everything. Dance recitals, school plays, the version of a family that photographs well. I was the one who kept the grocery list on the fridge and reminded Auntie Ness when the car registration was due. Different kids get cast in different roles early, and once you are cast, the family rarely lets you switch parts. When Talia got engaged to a man named Desmond, everyone was thrilled, myself included. I liked Desmond, still do. The wedding was set for a resort outside Sedona, Red Rock views, a Saturday in October, the kind of venue that costs what it costs because it looks the way it looks. I got the invitation in April. It came with a smaller card tucked inside, cream stock, gold foil script, a weekend to remember. Join us for the full Castellano Reyes family celebration. Underneath, a QR code linking to a group booking page for the resort. 3 nights, a welcome dinner Friday, the wedding Saturday, a farewell brunch Sunday. I did not think much of the card at first. Lots of weddings do a group rate now. I clicked the link out of curiosity more than anything, expecting to see room categories and a discount code. What I found instead was a payment portal. Not a booking link, a payment portal, already populated with a running total for 11 rooms, 3 nights each, plus a catering deposit for the welcome dinner, plus a line item labeled family contribution, reception bar package. At the bottom, in small gray text, it said, coordinated by W. Castellano. My own name, on a payment portal I had never seen before, requesting a total that, at a glance, was already past $30,000, and it was not even asking guests to pay for their own rooms. It was structured as a single collection point. 1 card, 1 name attached to the reservation. Mine. I called the resorts group sales line the next morning, gave them the reservation reference from the QR code, and asked, politely, professionally, the way I would ask a client, whether I was listed as the billing contact on file. The woman on the phone, her name was Priscilla, and I remember that because I would end up talking to her again, pulled it up and said, yes, ma'am. Ren Castellano, card ending in. Do you have it in front of you? I can read you the last 4 digits we have on file. I did not have a card on file with that resort. I had never given anyone a card number for a family wedding. I asked her to read the last 4 anyway. They matched a card I had canceled 8 months earlier after a skimming incident at a gas station. A card that had not been active in 8 months, which meant someone had typed in a number they remembered from somewhere. Maybe a card I had used to book a hotel for a cousin's baby shower 2 years back. Maybe one I had left on file at a restaurant we had all gone to together, and used it to anchor a $30,000 group reservation to my name, betting that by the time the card failed, the booking would already exist and I would feel too embarrassed, too committed, too watched, to unwind it. I thanked Priscilla, hung up, and sat at my kitchen table for a long moment doing what I do for a living, reading the situation like a profit and loss statement. Not emotionally. Structurally. Who benefits? Who is exposed? What happens at each decision point? Here is what I want you to understand about my family, because it explains everything that came after. We're not a family that says things directly. Nobody has ever sat me down and said, "Ren, we need you to pay for this." What happens instead is a structure gets built quietly, in the background, and then presented as already in motion, a boulder already rolling, so that stopping it looks like the aggressive act, not starting it. I had watched it happen to me, smaller scale for years. A birthday dinner reservation under your name, easier for points. A group gift already ordered, we just need everyone's share, you can front it, and we will Venmo you. Venmo requests that arrived at maybe 60% of what was actually owed. Quietly, every time, small enough that pointing it out felt petty. This was the same maneuver, just wearing a much more expensive outfit. I called my mother first, because she is usually the most direct member of the family, even when she is uncomfortable. I asked her, flatly, whether she knew my name and an old card number were attached to a $30,000 wedding weekend booking. There was a pause just slightly too long to be innocent. Then, "Oh, honey, that is just how Auntie Ness set it up for the group rate. It is not really coming out of your account, it is just the placeholder. Everyone is going to pay you back." I asked who everyone was. She named 11 rooms worth of relatives. I asked how much each of them had committed, in writing, to reimburse. She did not have a number. Nobody had a number. There was no ledger, no spreadsheet, no agreement, just a shared, unspoken assumption that had apparently formed somewhere in a group chat I was not part of, that Ren, the one who does something with hotels, would obviously be the one to sort this out, front the cost, and trust that the money would trickle back to her eventually, the way it always trickles back, which is to say, incompletely, slowly, and usually not at all. I want to be honest about something. My first instinct was not fury. It was a familiar, exhausted ache, the tiredness of realizing, again, that your competence is the reason people feel comfortable leaning their full weight on you without asking if you can hold it. I have felt that since I was 12, keeping the grocery list on Auntie Ness's fridge because someone had to, and I was the one who noticed. But I have also spent 6 years reading contracts for a living, and there is a version of me now that feels the ache and starts drafting the plan in the same breath. I called Talia directly. She was breathless, wedding planning brain, half her sentences trailing into logistics about centerpieces. When I asked about the payment portal, she got quiet in a different way than my mother had, less caught off guard, more like she had rehearsed an answer for exactly this question. "Ren, honestly, it just made sense. You are so good with this stuff. We figured you would want to handle the coordination anyway, and it is not like you would actually be out the money. Everyone is contributing. You are so good with this stuff." I have heard some version of that sentence my whole life, usually right before someone hands me a responsibility they do not want and calls it a compliment. I asked her directly, "Is there a document anywhere, where the 11 rooms worth of relatives have agreed to specific dollar amounts they will pay, and by when?" Silence. Then, "It is a wedding, Ren, not a business deal. Can you not make this weird? Can you not make this weird?" is the sentence my family reaches for whenever someone asks them to put a number on the table. It is not that they think it is weird to talk about money. It is that they think it is weird when I am the one asking, because historically, I am supposed to be the one who absorbs the ambiguity, so nobody else has to sit in it. I told Talia I loved her, that I was thrilled for her and Desmond, and that I would absolutely be at the wedding, but that my name and my card were coming off that portal within 24 hours, and that whoever had put them there without asking me needed to find a new billing contact immediately. She hung up first. That night I did what I do for clients every week. I built a spreadsheet, 11 rooms at the group rate, 3 nights, taxes and fees included. The welcome dinner catering minimum, split per adult. The family contribution, reception bar package line, which I call the resort directly to itemize because vague line items are where these things hide their worst surprises. Total, $41,118, once the vendor invoice is settled. Not 30, 41. The portal had been climbing quietly for weeks, and nobody but me had looked closely enough to notice. I did not send the spreadsheet to the family group chat in anger. I send it because information is the only currency that has ever actually worked in my family. Not appeals, not tears, not raised voices, just undeniable itemized fact. I wrote one message. Hi all, flagging that my old card, inactive since January, was placed on file for the full wedding weekend reservation without my knowledge. Total exposure across all rooms and catering is $41,118. I have removed my card and my name as billing contact as of this morning. Attached is the breakdown so everyone can see what their own room and meals actually cost, in case anyone wants to settle directly with the resort instead of routing it through a person. I attached the spreadsheet. I did not attach an accusation. I let the number do what numbers do. The replies came fast, and they came defensive, the way replies always do when a group has been quietly relying on nobody checking the math and someone finally checks the math. My Uncle Robert wrote that he thought the deposit was already handled. My Aunt Maricela asked, sincerely I think, whether this meant the wedding was in jeopardy, as if the wedding's continued existence had ever actually depended on my credit line and not on 11 adults being capable of booking their own hotel rooms. Auntie Ness called me instead of texting. She is the closest thing I have to a second mother, and her voice on the phone was quieter than I expected. Ren, I did not know it had gotten that big. I really did not. I told Talia to set up a group code, not this. I believed her, mostly. I think somewhere between set up a group code and a $41,000 payment portal quietly billing my debt card number, a lot of people made a lot of small, comfortable assumptions, and every single assumption happened to point the same direction, toward me. Here's the part one want you to sit with. If you have ever been the one everyone assumes will cover it. I did not decide to punish anyone. I decided to make the invisible visible. That is the whole strategy. My family's method depends on ambiguity. Nobody quite saying the number out loud. Nobody quite agreeing to anything in writing. So that when it comes time to pay, there is no clear villain, just a fog everyone can point toward and call family. Fog does not survive a spreadsheet. I flew to Sedona anyway. I was not going to miss my cousin's wedding over a billing dispute, and honestly, some old, stubborn part of me still wanted to walk in and prove that removing myself from the money did not mean removing myself from the people. Those are two different things, and I think my family has spent years conflating them on purpose, because it is a lot easier to guilt someone into paying if leaving the tab feels the same as leaving the family. I checked into my own room, my own reservation, my own card, my own name only on the folio I was actually responsible for. I paid for exactly one room, 3 nights, and my own meals. The welcome dinner Friday was tense in a way only my family can manufacture, polite, smiling, and radiating an undercurrent that everyone could feel and nobody would name. My Uncle Robert made a toast about family pulling together, and I watched 3 separate relatives glance at me while he said it, as if the sentence itself were a bill being slid gently across the table. Talia found me near the bar, wine in hand, a version of her wedding week's softness that I recognized as an opening move. I just do not want this to be a whole thing, she said. It is my wedding weekend. It is not a whole thing, I told her. I paid for my room. I am here for you. The $41,000 was never going to be a whole thing either. It just needed to have actual names attached to actual amounts, instead of one name attached to everyone's amount. She did not have anything to say to that. I do not think she had ever heard the situation described that plainly before, without the softening language everyone in my family reaches for instinctively: contribution, coordination, pulling together, words built specifically to make an obligation feel like a feeling instead of an invoice. Saturday, the wedding itself, was genuinely beautiful, and I want to be honest about that too, because this is not a story about a ruined wedding. Talia looked radiant. Desmond cried during his vows in a way that made half the room cry with him. I danced with my little cousin Nadia, who is 11 now, and does not remember a version of me that was not already the responsible one, and for a few hours none of the money mattered at all. It mattered again Sunday morning at checkout. I was in the lobby early, coffee in hand, when I overheard Priscilla at the front desk, the same woman I had spoken to on the phone weeks earlier, gently explaining to my Uncle Robert that 10 of the 11 rooms still needed a valid form of payment before checkout could be finalized, since the previous billing contact had been removed from the reservation. Robert's face did something I recognized immediately, because I had done the math myself weeks earlier and knew exactly what number was about to hit him. He turned, found me across the lobby, and for one unguarded second, before he could arrange his features into something more comfortable, I watched him do what my whole family had been quietly counting on someone else doing for a month, realize in real time precisely how much a weekend like this actually costs when the fog burns off and there is a real number with your own name finally attached to it. "Ren," he said, walking over, voice pitched low, "can you just put this back on your card and we will settle up after? It is a lot to figure out right this second." I looked at him, and I thought about 12-year-old me and the grocery list on Auntie Nessa's fridge, and I thought about the spreadsheet with my dead card number populating a running total nobody had bothered to check, and I said the only sentence I had come to Sedona actually needing to say. "I already settled up, Uncle Robert. I paid for my room. Everyone else's room is exactly as figured out as it has always been. They just have to actually figure it out now, instead of letting it default to me." I did not raise my voice. I did not make a scene. I finished my coffee, checked out of my own room in about 90 seconds because there was nothing to reconcile, and I watched from a comfortable distance as 10 separate adults spent the better part of an hour at that front desk sorting out a bill that had been quietly, invisibly mine for a month, and was, as of that morning, no longer anyone's business but their own. 6 months later, things are different, though not in the dramatic, door-slamming way you might expect. My mother still calls every Sunday. Auntie Ness sent me a card in December that just said I am proud of the boundary. I should have built one myself years ago. Talia and I are still close, though there is a new, careful honesty between us now that was not there before. She asks me directly for things now, actual numbers, actual timelines, instead of assuming I will absorb whatever is left unsaid. Uncle Robert and I have not really spoken since Sedona. I think, for him, the wedding weekend was not really about the money. It was about being caught in a room full of family, needing help he had assumed someone else would quietly provide without ever having to ask for it out loud. I understand that better than I probably let on that morning. But understanding it did not mean I owed him the invisible fog he was used to living in. Here is what 6 years in hotel finance and one very expensive wedding weekend taught me. The people who benefit most from vagueness are rarely the people doing the math. If you are the one who is always quietly expected to make the numbers work, you are not being trusted. You are being used as a buffer between everyone else and the actual cost of things. A spreadsheet is not cold. A spreadsheet is just the truth, written down where nobody can pretend not to have seen it. I paid for one room in Sedona, just mine, and it was the lightest my suitcase has ever felt on a flight home. If you have ever been the one everyone assumed would quietly cover it, I want to hear your story in the comments. What finally made you put the number on the table? And if this reminded you that being capable does not mean being obligated, share it with the person in your life who needs permission to send that spreadsheet.